We're learning as a schush for Shlema Filan Chaya Basarach. We're on Daf Ayin Daled Amud Aleph. So just to remind ourselves, we had brought in the Mishnah we had the Machlokes Reb Shimon and the Tanakama. Tanakama says, well, the way we've always expressed it, just out of ignorance, not because I was bedafka saying all the Tanakama, but the Minchas Kayin, the general. I was just thinking about this today. The rule in learning always is that every rule has an exception, and every rule or exception is a machlokes about. So this is not any different. The general rule is that a mincha brought by a kayin is kolel. That's what the Torah says. It's kolti. It has to be entirely consumed on the mizbeach. It's not that you make a kmitza and the shireh go to kehanim. That everyone agrees that far that not everything, that it's nothing is eaten by the kayin, but the Tanakhama says that there's not even a kmitza taken off of it. That means since it's a right, that's what the Mishnah says. I'm sorry, the other way around. The mincha v'chayta, he says. The minchas chayta, which is a mincha, the mincha v'chayta of a Yisrael, it goes to the kmitza gets burnt, and the rest of it goes to the kayin. But anything that has kmitza, that's going to be the rule. The rest is going to be going to the kayin, meaning that those minchas that are brought by kehanim, they don't have kmitza, because anything that has kmitza, what's left over goes to kehanim. Tanakama says anything that's it's a very blanket rule. You either have kmitza with the rest going to the kayin, or there's no kmitza. Then Rav Shimon says he disagrees. He says you go through sort of a pro forma kmitza on a minchas chayta brought by a kayin. You do a kmitza, but then whatever you take, whatever you have left over, is also burnt on the mizbeach. I'm sorry, right, and they're burnt separately. So those are the two sheets that we saw so far, and now we're on Daf Ayin Daled Amud Aleph, a little less than halfway down. Tanya Idach, Rav Shimon Omer, Minchas Chayta Shel Kehanim Nikmetzes V'Kamitz Karbas Ne'atzma V'Shirayim Karim Ne'atzma. Like we just said from Rav Shimon. Rav Shimon says there is a kmitza, but it's really just pro forma, because in the end it all gets burned together on the mizbeach. But Lazar Reb Shimon Omer, HaKaimitz Kara Ba'atzmai V'Ashirayim Mispazan Al Beis HaDeshen. He says he agrees with Reb Shimon that you have a kmitza on a minchas chayta of a kayin, but the shirayim, instead of being burnt on the mizbeach, they're spread out in the Beis HaDeshen. Rashi says means chutz Yerushalayim. I didn't say this at the beginning of the parak, but we had this earlier, that they say that the real Rashi is the Rashi on the bottom, the Rashi Ksav Yad, which was taken. There's a Shita Mukubetzes on the side that brings different Shitas Rishonim, and he brings Rashi. So they sort of put together, the Shita Mukubetzes put together the Rashi from what he had, or someone took it from the Rashi and the Shita Mukubetzes. They think that the Rashi that we have on the side is the Rabbeinu Gershon. So we're going to basically be sticking with the Rashi Ksav Yad. And that Rashi says, that this is the Shita of Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon. That it means it's taken to the Beis HaDeshen Chutz Yerushalayim. There's several Beis HaDeshen. There's one right on the side of the Mizbeach. The Rashi of the Ksav Yad says something about the Beis HaDeshen outside Yerushalayim. So Zok the Gemara, Rav Chi Barabba, Havi ba Rabbi Yochanan, Rav Chi Barabba, Rabbi Yochanan said that Rabbi Yochanan thought this was peculiar. Beis Hadeshen the Heichal. Which Beis Hadeshen will you bring the shirayim of the minchas chayta of a kayin? Idel Amayla. If you're saying that Beis Hadeshen means it's spread out on actually on the mizbeach, on the fire. Hainu avua. That's the same thing as Rav Shimon himself. Rav Shimon also said that it gets spread on the mizbeach. gets burnt on the mizbech. What is the point of saying that it's al beis hadeshen, meaning on the mizbech? Idel lamata, and if you're saying that you spread it out underneath, yesh chadavar shekarv lamata. Is there anything that is brought? Right, the Torah says that there's the hakrava on the mincha of a kohen, and it's kula kol. So how could you say? How do you have? There's no such thing as something being brought lamata. Amalei Rababa dilmali ibud. He said no. What it means to say when it's lamata means that it's not being brought as a carbon. It's being brought. It's being destroyed. That's the way you distribute it. That's the way you dispense with it is by spreading it out in the base of Eshen and Chotzu Shalayim. Tani Avu Derabavin. So he brings a riot that this is the case, even though it seems that this is a very strange thing to come to the conclusion that the shirayim of a minchas chayta of a kayin just gets spread out, gets scattered on the base of Deshen outside Yerushalayim. When the Torah directly says that it's kula kol, that it gets burnt, he's going to say that it comes from a pasuk. And again, this is a machlokes of many rishonim, but we'll be going with the pshat of Rashi and the Ksav Yad. Tani Avu Deravav, call
you skipped it. You skipped a line. Achichu alai.
You get a sense again said how you help things. You're saying that it's like the Torah is telling you to destroy it. The only thing that you destroy is something that's puzzle, right? If you have a psul hamukdashim, so you can't bring it on the mizbech, so therefore you're stuck. If it becomes tamei, and you can't bring it, it's something that can't be brought in betumo, but gets a balmum, so you have to destroy it. But this we're saying l'chatchila, that when a kayin brings a minchas chayta, that it's hayluch leibad. He said there's no such thing that the Torah dictates that something should go for ibad as l'chatchila. Tani avu derabavit. Kol minchas kayin kol tiyah lo'isaychal. The pasuk where we learn this rule, it says, the Torah tells you that when a kohen brings a carbon, a mincha, it should be fully consumed. It shouldn't be eaten by the kehanim. So what the Torah says, so he darshans loy seyachel. It shouldn't be eaten. The Torah is saying that this was said legabe this second pasuk. This pasuk is talking about other minchas, the mincha of a kohen, and it's comparing it to the minchas chavitin. The Torah says the minchas chavitin, that's the previous pasuk, is totally burnt, and then it says about the minchas kohen kol tiyah, and it says loy seyachal. So we're saying la'achila k'shisa v'lo l'davaracha. That's telling you that it's legabi achila, that it's not eaten. That's in that way it's similar. But as far as the kol tiyah, the minchas chayta does not have the same din as the minchas chavitin, that it's not burnt, but rather it's li'ibud. So we're learning out the pasuk. He's saying that the pasuk is specifically telling us li'ibud. So even though they were laughing at the idea that you would have a Torah directing you to do li'ibud, that's what the din of the Torah when it says to be makrav means li'ibud. He's saying no, because the Torah said Loy seyachel, you shouldn't eat it. Loy seyachel is a mashmois that the only thing you shouldn't do is eat it, but not that it should be nikrav. And it says this legabi the kavanas of a kohen, the minchas of a kohen. Maika Amar, how do you make that drasha from there? Amar Rabbi Hachi Kamar, kol minchas kohen loy seyachel chayvasei. We dash it like this. The Torah says two things. It says loy seyachel, and we're saying that's going on the chayva, which is the minchas chayta of a kayin, and that's where we have this diak that loy seyachel, that it can't be eaten, but that it's not brought as a carbon, it's not burnt on the mizbech, and then it says kol tiyah, that it is fully consumed on the mizbech nidvasa. That's talking about a minchas nedava of a kain that this whole Gemara has just been discussing the minchas chayta, the mincha that he has to bring for a carbon oil of a yared when he's not able to afford for those achaveris that he brings a mincha on. So on that we're saying that it's not burnt on the mizbech, but the nedava is totally burnt on the mizbech. Amalei Rava, Sakina Charifa Mafseka Kroi. Says it doesn't make any sense. The actual pasuk is V'chol minchas chayin kail tia, and then it says loy seyachal. And you're darshaning kol minchas chayin loy seyachal first. That the drasha of you're reading it as one thing. V'chol minchas chayin loy seyachal to tell you that it's talking about a minchas chayta, that it doesn't have the din of haktara, of being burnt on the mizbeach. It says, how could you divide up the pasuk and read the first words kol minchas kayin together with the last words of the pasuk? And lamarava kol minchas kayin kol tia nidvasai. He just reads it straight. It said, we're not really dashing from the words kol minchas kayin. It's really from the second part of the pasuk. So it's not substantively different than Abaya. He's just saying the way you had characterized the limud was awkward. In fact, the Gemara of Eipachana, why are we deciding to say that the Minchas Chayta is getting the din of Lo Seyachal, which implies that it's not burnt on the mizbech; it's just not eaten. That the rest of it, but it's not brought on the mizbech either. It gets distributed, it gets dispensed on the deshen, and the minchas nedava is burnt on the mizbech. Why don't we say the other way around? So Gemara mistaver nedvasei haveli lebuye. L'chayr, the nedava does get the kol tia, that it gets burnt on the mizbech. Shechein tedira, it's similar to the minchas chavitin, that it's brought all the time. Nedava can be at any time, and loy chati, and there's no chet involved, just like the minchas havitin, and basim reicha, and also it has a good smell because it's with shemen and levina. So that's why the minchas nedava is more likely to be compared to the minchas havitin, which is fully burnt. But let's say the minchas chayta is similar to the minchas havitin. Shechein isarin, they're both in isarin, while the minchas nedava can be any amount. And chayva, they're both required, while the minchas nedava is obviously optional. So Gemara Hanak Nefishin, it's 3 versus 2, so that's why we compare the chavitin to the nedava as opposed to the chayta, and the chayta is the one left that it doesn't get burnt on the mizbech. Rabbanon, this is all explaining over Elazar Reb Shimon where he learned this out, that the when a kohen brings a minchas chayta, that the shirayim are not burnt on the mizbech, but they go on the deshen. Rabbanon say it is burnt. So what do they do with this pasuk? I call minchas kohen kol tia leisayachal mayavdi. What do they do with that pasuk? They need it like it said in this brisa. The pasuk says, when it's again, the pasuk had been talking about the minchas chavitin, and then it switched and said minchas kohen kol tia leisayachal. So I would only know that the minchas chavitin has a din of kol tikta, and which is an essay, and the lav of loy seyachal would be only on the, I guess, on the minchas chayta. How do we know that both of them have both the essay and the lav? That we add in what the kol tia that it says by the minchas chavitin, the essay that says minchas chavitin, that the essay that you should burn it, and we make gzeir shava to what we just said by all the menachos, that where we said a loy seyachal, so that they both have both the essay and the loy. Nemakan kol v'nemer la'alon kol ma'alon b'kol tikter avkan b'kol tikter ma'kan litin loy seyal l'chilase avalon litin loy seyal l'chilase. They both have both aspects. Boy Ravina, koyin she'achal min heimurim, a koyin that ate from a murim. Where the Gemara is asking an add-on question. Once we've talked about Menachos, we've brought this 3 Menachos about what you do with a minchas koyin, a minchas chayta of a koyin, and we brought the lav of eating from the shirayim, from the koyin's mincha. The Torah said it has to be burnt, and the Torah said lo seyachal, it shouldn't be eaten. What's the din about the emurim of a carbon? Kayin she'achal minei murin. I don't think it has to be a kayin bedavka. It really could be anyone. Um, These are the parts that's supposed to be burnt on the mizbech. Mahu. What's the din? Lav the zaris and the amid beis loy kami bayali. There's no question about the isser, the jet, which zaris over here doesn't refer to zar eating it, because it really could be anyone. No one's allowed to eat this. We're talking about something that I think Tysus says. Lav the zaris, but could just call zar le'yochel kodesh grusha. Yeah, Tysus said it's talking about anything that's not allowed to be eaten. Is called. This comes from the isser of zaris. So that isser of that you're not allowed to eat something that's supposed to go on the mizbeach is certainly going to apply. Ki kamibayle lav the kolotia, or of loiseyachal, that it's supposed to be burnt. Do we say that this lav, which is said by Menachos, will also apply by a murim? What's the din? Amrav Haram l'Ravina Toshma. The Tanya Belaza, I'm a kolshu b'kolol tia. You can learn to say alachila. Say the Torah says that everything that is not allowed to be eaten is included in the isser of kolol tia. Anything that's supposed to be burnt that's eaten by someone, by a person, by a yid, is included in the lav of loiseyos of this kolol tia loiseyachel, and there's a lav on that as well.
So it would apply to a Kayin and to Yisrael,
It would
obviously.
be all right that this
Right?
question was never right. It was irrelevant, really. Yeah, that's what the Taisa says. I'm just going to need a second. I'll be back in 30 seconds. The problem with always having tissues on your desk is that everyone in your family knows that there's one place they could always find tissues. So they never stay there. I constantly resupply them, and that's where they end up all over the house. Rob, you look like you're familiar with this.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Zok the Mishnah. Minchas Kehanim, or Minchas Koyin Mashiach, or Minchas Nesachim. L'mizbeach, ve'ein behen lekehanim. These are things that are fully burnt on the mizbeach, and the kehanim don't get to eat any of it. So minchas kehanim is, let's see the Rashi on the bottom. I don't know if there is any Rashi, but or maybe it's the Rashi, the regular Rashi. No. But it's talking about, as the Gemara will talk about, the regular minchas adava or minchas chayta that's brought by a kohen. It's not, none of it is eaten by the kehanim. And as well as the minchas kohen Mashiach, which is the minchas chavitin brought every day by the kohen gadol, or minchas nesachim. Those are the minchas when a person brings a oila or a shlamim, he has to bring along with it a mincha together with nesachim, with wine that gets poured onto the mizbeach. So that mincha that goes with the nesachim is called the minchas nesachim. That also is fully burnt. None of it is eaten by the kohen. And in these things, the mizbeach is stronger than kohanim, that it's going to the mizbeach, and none of it is going to the kohanim. Those three things. These things, the lechem aponim and the shtei lechem, are fully, the entire thing is eaten by the kohanim. Now, the shtei lechem, as we know, is also levina that comes along with it that's burnt on the mizbeach, but we're talking about the lechem itself, and the lechem is fully eaten by kohanim. And nothing goes to the mizbeach. There's no kmitza. And that, the kohanim are strong. So Vesuleka is the first list, the only things that are fully burnt on the mizbeach, that nothing goes to the kohanim. What about an oila? When you bring a carbon oila, or even I guess oila sa'if, this is all going to be burnt on the mizbeach, and nothing's eaten by kohanim. The skin of the Eilah goes to Kayin, so it's not appropriate to include in this list of things that are fully on the Mizbeach. In fact, the Marve Ika Eilah Sa'if. What about the Eilah Sa'if? That there's nothing that goes, there's no oir, so the entire Eif is burnt and there's nothing goes to Mizbeach, goes to Kehanim. So the Gemara Ika Mayra B'Noitza. The feathers and the crop where the bird keeps the stones, so that is all burnt separately. It doesn't go on the Mizbeach, so therefore it's not clear to say that it all goes to the Mizbeach. Correct, Gemara. V'ika Nesachim. What about, we said the Menachos Nesachim, the flour part of a Menachos Nesachim, what comes with an Eilah and Shlamim, that it goes, that gets burnt fully on the Mizbeach. But what about the wine that comes along with it? That is fully on the Mizbeach, and none of it, so you mentioned only the Mincha. What about the Nesachim part that also is not eaten by Kehanim? So Gemara L'Shisin, Asli. It's not burnt on the Mizbeach, but rather gets poured down the holes, the drains in the Mizbeach, and goes into the ground. Umay Bezu. Then the Mishnah ended off and said that these are the things that are fully consumed on the Mizbeach, and says, and in this way the Mizbeach is stronger than Kehanim. What is that coming to tell you? It's coming to exclude Shmuel. Amar Shmuel, Hamasnad of Yaim Beisai, Umazal Ve'al Gabe Yishin. Someone who, I'm sorry, Hamasnad of Yain Mevi Umazal Ve'al Gabe Yishin. Someone who gives Yain, who donates Yain as a standalone Nesachim, you bring it and you pour it on top of the fires. So according to him, that would be another example of something that is fully consumed. So we're trying to say that this mission does not hold like Rav Shimon, and therefore these are the only things. These are the things that are stronger about the Mizbeach, but not including Rav Shmuel's Shita. Kamash Malon, the L'Shisan Azli. It's not poured on the fire, but rather it goes into the holes, and therefore it's not considered a full consumption of Mizbeach. And Misayel Shmuel, the Amar Shmuel, Hamisnad of Shemen, Koimtzoi, B'Shirav Nechol. Shmuel, this is a riot to Shmuel. Shmuel says if someone gives Shemen as an Edava to the Mizbeach, you take Kaimitz from it, and that's burnt on the Mizbeach, and the Shirayim are Nechal. And the Shirayim get eaten by the Kehanim. So according to him, that's the reason why Shemen is excluded. If you don't hold like Shmuel, then you would say the whole thing is burnt, all the Shemen is burnt on Mizbeach, it should be included. So this is a raya, like Shmuel, that it's in this second machlekes. The first machlekes, we said it's a raya not like Shmuel, and it's a raya like Shmuel in this machlekes. The Gemara continues, Shtei halechem v'lechem aponim. The Mishnah gave those as examples of types of menachos that are fully eaten by Kehanim, and no part of it goes on Mizbeach. The Chatas Ha'oif, there's no emurim, there's no kmitza. It's the whole thing is eaten by Kehanim. So the dam you take out and you spread it on the Mizbeach. So therefore it's not fully lekehanim. What about the loig shemen of a mitzaira that it's fully given to kehanim? So Gemara, no, but even though it's given to the kehanim, but there are parts of the loig shemen of mitzaira that are spread, that's poured, that's spritzed out. I think toward the paroiches, and then there's parts that are spread on the mitzaira's ear and toe, so it's not fully available to kehanim. Umay bezu. What is the last part? It says bezu this way. In this way, it's the kayin is stronger than the mizbeach. Lafuki mimanda omer she'elechem abois b'fnei atzmon. When the kifsei atzeres, something happens to the kifsei atzeres, so you only have the shtei lechem left, so they bring bread on their own. L'sefer asyan. There's a man who says that it gets burnt, so then it would be included as something that it doesn't go to the kehanim. Kamashlam dezu yafa koyach kehanim la'olam. It's going to tell you that shtei lechem, which is one of the things we mentioned, is always going to go fully kehanim, even when it's b'fnei atzman, even when there's no kivsei atzeres along with it, it's still not going to have the din that it's burnt, but rather will remain like the Mishnah said, Shtei Alechem, the Kehanim are stronger that they get to keep it. Okay, now is where it gets really technical. We're going to get into the kishkas of exactly how the mincha was done. So let's remind ourselves some generalities. And I'm not, like I said, I didn't know anything about this before we started learning Menachos, and I still only know what I learned now. But we generally have discussed, we have several different types of minchas. You have the mincha of the machvas and the marcheshes, which is a fried in a shallow pan. You have the mincha soilus, and you have the mincha ma'afei taner. You have the mincha that's baked. I think those are the general different types that are then brought for different reasons. So, Zok the Mishnah. Kol ha-menachos hanasas bekli, those minchas that are made in a kli, which the Rashi in the Kisvei Yad says, what it's coming to Mayit, but the Gemara is going to say that it's talking about the machvas and the marcheshes. There are 3 times that you put shemen on it, and these are in reverse order. Yitzika, at the end of the avodah, you pour a little bit of shemen, the leftover shemen on it, oblila, and it also needs to have shemen poured on it in the middle stage and it gets mixed in. And then the third one, which is really the first, you put some shemen into the vessel before you put the silas in. That's the first one. So we said 3, 2, 1. Third is the yitzika. The second one is blila, which includes mixing, and the first one is putting a little bit of shemen into the kli beforehand. So the Gemara says now the Mishnah is going to explain one of the part of the middle part of it. We said belila, where you put shemen in and you mix it. So the Tanakhama says, Rebbe says, chales boilon devri Rebbe. Rebbe says, you first make it into chales. We have to dispense with our picture of a 3 braided challah. Challah means that you baked it first, or you fried it first, and then you break it into pieces, and you mix it with the shemen. The Chum say no, you mix the second level of putting shemen in, you do it with the flour, and then afterwards you fry it in the machvas or the marcheshes. Now the Mishnah moves on.
So when is the
Yitzika is afterwards.
When is before according to that, once before Le'asiyasim?
That's the first thing.
Right.
You put a little bit of oil in the kli, and then you put the flour in. But you haven't yet.
Got it.
You haven't done belila, which is the second level of putting in more shemen.
All right.
And the question is, that second level of shemen, is it preceded by making it into chalas or not? Do you first make chalas as macheshes or machvas, and then you break it up into pieces and do belila, which is Rabbi Shita, or do you first mix the silas with the shemen and then fry it, and then afterwards you're gonna do the psisa and then the yitzika? Now we're moving on to hachalis to unis belila. Now we're talking about the ma'afei taner. So these are not the fried machvas and machashes, but these are the types of minchas that are baked in the oven, which we said there are 2 kinds. They're chalis and rikikin. There are thick ones and thin ones, which is similar to machashes and machvas, but over here that's a reference to the kind of kli it's fried in. This is baked in an oven. So these chalis to unas belila, they need to be mixed or kikin. So the chalis version of ma'afei taner, they need to be mixed with the oil. Or kikin meshicha. But the rikikin, instead of being mixed with the oil, they have oil smeared on top of them. You make it into a flat baked mincha, and then you smear oil on it. Again, we're just to clarify. The first part of the Mishnah was talking about the machvas and machashas, which were pre-fried. It started kol minchas nasa b'kli. That means the machvas and the machashas. At least in this Mishnah, that's what it means. The next Mishnah is going to have a different meaning. It means machvas and machashas. Then the second part of the Mishnah is talking about the ma'afei tanner, things that are baked. They're not baked in a kli. They're baked in an oven, and those. Well, there's a machlokes about how the oil, how you do belila on such a mincha. So the hachalas tunis belila rakika mashicha. I'm sorry, it's not a machlokes. It's just the Tanakh. The Tan of the Mishnah says that the chalas need to be mixed, or rakika mashicha, and Rajir have it smeared on top of it. Ketza and mashchan. How do you do this mashicha? Kamin ki, in the shape of a key, which Rashi says is a lashon. It's a Greek letter in the alphabet, which is many different versions of what the letter is. I think we're all familiar from the Rashi in Chumash, which makes it look like a letter nun, a little bit like a nun. Bashar nechol lekehanim, and the rest of it is eaten by kehanim. The rest of the oil, meaning after you do that, it's not like the chavitin and the machvas and the marchashes that you pour all the oil in. Over here, you make that shape, and that's the end of it. You don't do anything else. So all you have in this is the first two ways of putting in oil that we mentioned by the machvas and marchashes. So you put a little bit of oil, and then you put in the silas, and then depending on chalas, at some point you do the belila, and which for the chalas means mixing, and for the rikikin it means mashicha, drawing the oil on, and then the rest of the oil goes to gehanim. It's not mixed in. Zak the Gemara, lemute mai. We said kol menachos and nasa b'kli tu neshalish matanos. Which ones are we saying? Which the ones that are nasa b'kli? Amar papa lemute minchas ma'afe. It's coming to exclude, like we said, the second part of the Mishnah, those things that are baked. Tan Rabba, ve'minchas marchashes kavanecha. Brisa says, if you bring a minchas marchashes, soilus b'shemen teyasa, should make it soilus with shemen. Melamed shetuuna matan shemen b'kli. It says soilus b'shemen tasa. The Gemara, the Bryce learns out from that. That means that you have to first put the shemen in the kli and then afterwards put the soilus, right? Because it says soilus b'shemen tasa. You put the soilus into the shemen. You make the shemen first, and then you put the soilus on top of it. Karbanecha. Then the pasuk says karbanecha by this is by marcheshes, and it says karbanecha by a machvas l'gzeir shava. Ma kan matan shemen kli avalon matan shemen kli. We learn from marcheshes to machvas, so they both have the same din. Umala halon yitiko blila, just like the Torah says directly by the machvas, it says you have to do the other two matnas of shemen of yitziko, which is the last one, and belila, the middle one, when you mix it together with shemen. Avkan yitziko belila, that will also apply to the marchashes. So then we have the machlokes Rebbe and the Chachamim about at what point did you do the belila? Did you do the belila with shemen, the middle nesina shemen together with the mixing? Was that before or after baking or frying these the machas and marchashes? So chalas boil on divrei Rabbi v'chamayim silas. You did it with silas. Tanarabban silas belula shema melamed shenivlelis silas. Torah says, where's the pasuk? V'mincha al machvas kavanecha silas belula shemen matzatia. Silas belula melamed shenivlelis silas. That tells you, like the Tanakh, like the Chachamim say, that the first thing that you do with it is you mix the shemen in, and then afterwards you fry it. Rabbi Eimer chalas boilalin. He says no. First you make it into fried versions, and then you break it up and mix it with the shemen. Shenema chalas belulas. It says v'chisakriv korban mincha me'afei tanu. So it's chalas matzah belul b'shemen. Kikam matzah meshuchim b'shemen. It's not exactly clear. This is why the Rishonim are a little bit confused. Why are we bringing a raya from the ma'afei tanur to the machvas and the marchashes? And that's the reason why it was very controversial. Rashi's pshat in the Mishnah, but Rashi seems to be learning out from that. Amru loy v'haloi lachmei toida nemar bahen chalois. It says chalois by lachmei toida as well. V'yavshir l'bailulon kishehein chalois, and it's impossible to be bailul them after they were already baked, because lachmei toida, there were 40 lachmei toida, and there was only a very small amount of shemen. So once it's baked, it's impossible to mix a large amount of baked goods with a small amount of oil. So your derivation from the words soil chalois, that it says chalois boilulon, solis belulam, Rabbi chalois boilulon shenema chalois belulos, but it says that lashon by the Torah in there. It's impossible to say that it had belula after it was made into chalois. Ella. So Eyav Shalabaylan Kashen Chalis Ella Silas, Kates at Oisa. So what does he do? Noisin Shemin Bekli, Kaidim Lasi Yarsa. He puts Shemin in the Kli before he puts in the Silas. Venoisna, then he puts in the Silas. Venoisin Shemin Alei, he puts Shemin on top of it. Ubaila. And then he mixes it. Vilosha. And then he kneads it. Vaifa, and he bakes it. Upaisasa. At that point he breaks it apart. The nice and shemen, and he puts on it the shemen, that is the yitzika, the kainitz. That's the Tanakama. That's the Chacham Shita. Rabbi Aimer Chalis Bailon. Shnam Chalis Beluas B'Shemen Ketzad Oisa. So how would he say you do it? Nice and shemen B'Kli Kaidim Lasiyasa. He agrees that the first and the last one they're not arguing about. So you put the shemen in the Kli before you put the silas in. But nicely he puts in the silas, the lasha, and then you knead it, and you bake it, and you still haven't put in the second shemen with the belila. Upaisasa, and you break it into pieces, which is a chiyuv deraisa that's part of the avodah. Shemen, and then you put the shemen after you broke it into pieces. Ubaila, and you mix it together. Shemen, then you do the tzika. The kaimitz, then you do the kmitza. Zok the Gemara. That which the Rabbanan had asked, that it's impossible by Taida to do a kamitza, a belila with the shemen. Why is it impossible? What does that mean? What does that mean? Like we explained, that was the question. How could you have with just a small Revi'ah shemen to do the 40 chalas to do a belila? But Rebbe did not agree with that question, and he persevered with his pshat that nevertheless, that's true by Taida, it's impossible, but by other minchas, where you have a larger amount of shemen, you do it as the Torah says, where it says chalas bailua. Zok the Gemara, hachalis tunas belila or kikin meshicha. In the Mishnah, we said that there was in the Minchas Ma'afe Tanur, there is a split that the thicker, like the pita-like chales, they need to be mixed with oil, and the rekikin instead have the oil spread on them. Taraban. Chales belulis v'lei rekikin belulin. The chales get mixed with oil, but the rekikin, the thin wafers, do not get mixed. Shiyachal, because I might think, v'lei dinu, ma'chal she'ein tunis meshicha. Tunim belila, rekikin shudus meshicha, and yedin she'tunim belila. If the Torah says directly that you do meshicha, the rikike matzah meshuchim b'shemen, and it says a bunch of times that the chalas matzahs are belulas. So if the chalas that don't need meshicha need belila, certainly the rikikin that have a din of meshicha they need belila. Talmud Leimer, chalas belulas v'lo rikikin belulas. So we learn out the Torah says chalas and not rikikin. Rikikin meshuchim v'lo chalas meshucha sheyachal. It has to tell you that. Well, I didn't. Ma rikikin she'ein tunim belila tunim meshicha chalas she'tunim belila and yedin she'tunim meshicha. Certainly, the chalas, if they need belila, they should also need the meshicha like the rikika did. Talmud Leimer rikika meshuchim v'lo chalas meshucha. My Talmuda. So tomorrow, why can't it mean if it says? Why don't we learn out from both to both? If it says that the rikikin are meshuchin and it says the chalas are belulin, let's say that the belulin applies to the rikikin as well, and the meshuchin applies to the chalas as well. Amarava l'ishtamet v'lichtav chalas meshuchas rikikin belulin. The Gemara says that from the fact that the Torah repeated it numerous times, that tells you that each one is bedafka. That the Mashiach is limited to the Rekikin, and the Belila is limited to the Chalis. Otherwise, the Torah should have switched it around if it was applicable to both of them. But the fact that we said numerous times the same thing, that tells you that it's bedafka. Zog the Gemara, Keshed Moichin Kamin Ki. We said on the Ma'afei Tanner that the Rekikin, you do Mashicha of the oil on the Rokik. How do? You do it like the shape of a Ki Vashar Nechel, and the rest is eaten. My Kamin Ki, Amar Kana Kamin Ki Yavni, like the letter Ki in Yavani. Tanner Rabban. Mincha Haboa Mechza Chalis or Mechza Rekikin. We had this Gemara many times for Rav Shimon that every time we said that there's only 10 minchas, we always say it's to be not to include Rav Shimon, because according to him there'd be 11, the half chales and the half rekikin. So someone, according to Rav Shimon, who says that you can do that, maybe luk shemen, you bring one luk shemen, v'chaitzei, you divide it half. Chetz yoy l'chales. Half of it is for the chales, v'chetz l'rekikin. Chales boilon, the chales get belila, v'rekikin moishchen, and the rekikin get meshicha on them. U'moishech has a rekik al pnei kuloi. This Tana is chaylik on the Tana of our Mishnah. Our Mishnah had said you make it a key. This Mishnah says that you're moishech on top of the entire face of it. You don't just do in the letter key. V'shar Hashem machzir l'chalis. And the rest of the Shemin, unlike we said in the Mishnah that it goes to the Kehanim, this Tana holds that it goes into the chalis. It gets poured in together to Belila with the rest of the chalis. Shimon Yehuda Mishum Reb Shimon Oimer Moishech kamin ki v'shar Hashem nechel l'kehanim. He says, like we said in our Mishnah, he said Paschals like our Mishnah. Tanya idach, Rekikin aboim b'fnei atzon maybe luk shemen u'moishchan. Rekikin that come on their own. It means if you just bring Rekikin without the chalis, maybe luk shemen u'moishchan, and you do mashichan. If a chayz u'moishchan, hashicha kol hashemen shebelug. Again, not like our Tana of our Mishnah. He's saying that it's not just in the shape of a key, but rather you keep on smearing it on the face of it. Shimon Yehuda, Mishum Shimon, Moshe Kamin Ki v'Shar Hashem and Nechel Kehanim, like we said in our Mishnah. Okay, we'll stop over here. I think that's quite enough time for me to say the words Mincha and Rekikin and Chalis. I'm sure it's gotten a bit repetitive and hard to distinguish